The Freedom Singers were singing the song Oginga Odinga, because Oginga Odinga is one of the foremost freedom fighters on the African continent. At the time he visited in Atlanta, Georgia, I think he was then the Minister of Home Affairs in Nairobi, in Kenya. But since Kenya became a republic last week, and Jomo Kenyatta ceased being the Prime Minister and became President, the same person that you are singing about, Oginga Odinga, is now Kenyatta's Vice President. He's the number 2 man in the Kenya government. And the fact that you would be singing about him, to me, is quite significant. 2 or 3 years ago, this wouldn't have been done. 2 or 3 years ago, most of our people would choose to sing about someone who was, passive and meek and humble and forgiving. But Oginga Odinga is humble and forgiving. But Oginga Odinga is not passive. He's not meek. He's not humble. He's not nonviolent. But he's free. Oginga Odinga is Vice President under Jomo Kenyatta, and Jomo Kenyatta was considered to be the organizer of the Mau Mau. And I think you mentioned the Mau Mau in that song. And if you analyze closely those words, I think you'll have the key to how to straighten the situation out in Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
The Mau When the nations of Africa are truly independent, and they will be truly independent because they're going about it in the right way, they will give the historians will give the Prime Minister, or rather President Kenyatta, and the Mau Mau their rightful role in African history. They'll go down as the greatest African patriots and freedom fighters that continent ever knew, and they will be given credit for bringing about the independence of many of the existing independent states on that continent right now. There was a time when their image was negative, but today they're looked upon with respect, and their chief is the president, and their next chief is the vice president. And I have to take time to mention that because, in my opinion, not only in Mississippi and Alabama, but even right here in New York City, you and I can best learn how to get real freedom by studying how Kenyatta brought it to his people in Kenya, and how Odinga helped him, and the excellent job that was done by the Mau Mau freedom fighters. In fact, that's what we need in Mississippi. In Mississippi, we need a Mau Mau. In Alabama, we need a Mau Mau. In Georgia, we need a Mau Mau. Right here in Harlem and New York City, we need a Mau Mau. And I say it with no anger, but I say it with very careful forethought. The language that you and I have been speaking to this man with in the past hasn't reached him. And you can never really get your point across to a person until you learn how to communicate with him. If he speaks French, you can't speak German. You have to know what language he speaks and then speak to him in that language. And when I listen to Mrs. Hamer, a black woman, could be my mother, my sister, my daughter, describe what they had done to her in Mississippi, I ask myself, how in the world can we ever expect to be respected as men when we know that we will allow something like that to be done to our women and we do nothing about it? How can you and I be looked upon as men with black women being beaten and nothing being done about it? Black children and black babies being beaten and nothing being done about it. No, we don't deserve to be recognized and respected as men as long as our women can be brutalized in the manner as that this woman described and nothing be done about it, but we sit around singing, "We shall overcome." We need a Mau Mau. If they don't want to deal with the freedom, with the Freedom Democratic Party, then we'll give them something else to deal with. If they don't want to deal with the Student Nonviolent Committee, then we have to give them an alternative. But never stick someone out there without an alternative. We waste our time. Give them this or give them that. Give them the choice between this or that.
Those words could not be better spoken. First of all, let me welcome and thank all of you for joining us this evening. As we remember Malcolm X, we remember his words, we remember his life and works and his message. And I want to thank you all for joining us. And if I didn't know any better, that's the same words that could be spoken right now about what happened in Buffalo and what has happened to us historically. My name's Akili. I'm with the Fannie Institute and with Black Lives Matters LA. I appreciate you all joining us today. I have participated in the Kuzaliwa celebrations now going on 42, 43 years, because I think it's important to remember Malcolm. I think it's important to make sure that his contributions were made. And Malcolm, for me, I have a special relationship. We both came to consciousness within prison. We both came out after our consciousness and got involved. We both have developed and evolved. And so I have a particular affiliation, a particular appreciation for Malcolm, because his life and my life in many ways parallel. So I'm glad to be here and I'm glad that you all have joined us. We are going to have a discussion about Malcolm, his work, his message, and his life. And we have some people who are joining us here that I have a lot of respect, admiration, and love for, people that I've worked with for sometimes over the years. And because Dr. Malveaux is the inaugural Dean of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA, she is a journalist, she is an economist, and she is just a down sister. You hear me? You know, a lot of times when you get them titles and you got all them doctorates and all the rest, sometimes you don't always keep touch. You know what I mean? You can float away. Not this sister. No, she is a down sister. And I mean, I can go about all the titles. She was former president of a university, and I can tick those off. But for me, she's always been a down sister. She's always been somebody who you could count on to speak truth to power. You could count on to make sure that the message is heard. It's somebody that you could count on to make sure that Black folks are not left out and forgotten. So with that, I'm going to open up with Dr. Julianne Malveaux, inaugural Dean of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA. Dr. Malveaux. I have to unmute you. So let me do that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, good evening all, and Bob and Akili, thank you so much for including me in this, and my apologies in advance that I'm on tight time, but I couldn't miss this. I couldn't miss the opportunity to reflect on the legacy of Malcolm X and to think about the many ways that he impacts us. Now, as you said, we need some Mau Mau's up in here right now. When we look at what happened in Buffalo, and we look at the fact that this boy had been known to be collecting weapons, had been known to be mentally ill, and his daddy gave him a gun. Arrest his daddy, please, somebody. His daddy gave him a gun. We need the brothers, and I say the brothers, to step up. But let me step back for a moment and talk about what Malcolm X meant to me. Now, Betty Shabazz was my sorority sister and a dear friend, and I remember the first time I met her We were at a Delta conference in the Bahamas, of all places, and she and I were sitting by the pool. I had not met her. I'd seen her. I'd heard her speak. I think I was all of about 30 and in awe of her, total awe. And she said, sister, sit down. And she said, you want a pina colada? I said, oh, yeah. And I was saucer-eyed. And I said, oh, you're Betty Shabazz. You were married to Malcolm. And she said, child, you better get over that. He was a man just like anybody else, and I'm a sister just like you. And that really reminded me that these were real people who were committed to struggle, but also had their own struggles and challenges and all of that. Betty, she loved Malcolm. She quoted Malcolm, but she never idolized Malcolm. And we need to think about that too. Let's use his words to empower us. What did I love about Malcolm X? The just brash bodaciousness of speaking, unafraid, unabashed. He died in 1965. This is a time when Black people were begging for the opportunity to speak. We were Mr. Bojangling. I call it Mr. Bojangle. So dancing here, dancing there. Not quite coming out. I mean, John Lewis and Dr. King certainly were masterful at the March on Washington in 1963, but understand the control that the other people tried to have on them. John Lewis had to submit his speech and submit his speech and submit his speech, and praise the Lord, he went off script. When it's time, he went off script. Dr. King, they wanted him to calm down and tone down. In some ways, he did. Some might talk about pragmatic leadership, but Malcolm X was very pragmatic in speaking to our needs and reminding us that we could stand up. So just that boldness that we see so little of. When we look at our Congressional Black Caucus, many of them are dear friends. Many of them are very important and very focused, but few of them are bold. Few of them are going to stick it to Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. They're going to go along with the game and the okie doke. Malcolm X did not go along with the okie doke. And when I hear him, just like the clip about Akili that you just played, when I hear that, it reminds me of who we could be, Black people, who we could be if we paid attention to the power that we have. The other thing about Minister Malcolm, Brother Malcolm, is his economic vision. As y'all know, I'm an economist, and economics is about the study of who gets what, when, where, and why, who slices a pie and how. And he really talked about us not only slicing the pie, but baking our own pie and then slicing it. One of the things he said that always resonates, he says a white man is too intelligent to let someone else come and gain control of the economy as his community. But you let anyone come in and take control of the economy of your community, control the housing, the education, the jobs, the businesses, under the pretext that you want to integrate. No, you out of your mind. And here we go again. We're still doing that. And in terms of the economy, we are financing white people's education. You know, when you look at the state of California, you look at the University of California system, our flagship system, you see Berkeley less than 3% Black students. But our tax money funds UC Berkeley. And we could go down the list of line. Here at Cal State LA, again, 3% Black students. But our tax money is funding this. Now, I know we're only 8% of the population in California, but we have to be 8% of everything else there. What we see is that we acquiesce. We acquiesce to the okie doke, and this is what Malcolm X just simply refused to do. And so whenever I think of him, quite frankly, I get shivers thinking about the audacity. And in some ways, he and Dr. King were connected because Dr. King too had audacity. His Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech was, I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education, culture for their minds, peace and freedom for their spirits. So those brothers were joined in their audacity, but they approached the stuff differently. Let me finally say that the most important things said about Brother Malcolm were said by Ossie Davis at his February 27th, 1965 homegoing service, when he called him our prince, our shining Black prince, our manhood. There could be, should be, ought to be more brothers like Malcolm X who stand in their reality, stand in their manhood, refuse to let folks mess with Black people, but especially to mess with Black women. How could Tim Scott, that person from South Carolina, sit and listen to Ted Cruz attack Kelanji Brown? How could he do that? This is a black man. In the image of Malcolm, he should have stood up and said, you know what? No, I'm not going to tell you what he should have said. I respect Baba Akili. I ain't going to cuss on his program. But you know what he should have said? Shut the front door. Shut the front door. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Somebody should have told Ted Cruz, you cannot attack this black woman. But see, everybody attacks black women, and where are the brothers who would defend us and basically protect us and support us? Malcolm X is our model. He's our role model, and we need to continue to remember him as that role model. And more of us need to embrace that role model, embrace that boldness, as opposed to going to some corporate person and saying, buy a table to my dinner. You know, too many of us settle for the little 2,500, 5,000 contribution for a table to the dinner. What about changing the economic structure? What about calling people out? I'm gonna give you one example. I'm gonna stop, Baba Akili. You got some other great people here. And again, I'm so regretful that I can't be with y'all. But let me give you an example. After the murder of George Floyd, corporate America, the top 50 Fortune 500 companies, top 50, pledged almost $50 billion to various and sundry racial justice causes. One of those was McDonald's. They had the statement they wrote. If you Google McDonald's, and the statement is called "He Was One of Us," and they're talking about George Floyd. Okay, so they got this beautiful thing. He was one of us, and this is why we give it. Da da da. Just as they wrote that statement, the black McDonald's operators were suing McDonald's for unequal treatment, for discrimination. An average black McDonald's operator earns $700,000 a year less than a white McDonald's operator. Why? Are they just inefficient? No, what they are is being pushed into the poorest areas, being restricted, charging high rents, because you know McDonald's is really a real estate company. They own all that land and stuff. But anyway, the point is, on one hand, they say, oh, we down with you people. He was one of us. On the other hand, excuse my language, they screwing us. And the brothers who work for McDonald's, who work franchisees, they bold, but we need to be bold too. How bold could we be? Keep yourself out of McDonald's. Keep yourself out of McDonald's. Do not support the oppressor. And these people are oppressing us. And so Brother Malcolm will be the first to stand in line and say, we're not having this. Not only will he be talking about the ingredients in the food, because he's very pure about his food, but he also be talking about the ingredients in the oppression. We have to call it what it is. It's oppression. And so I cannot monopolize this conversation when there's so many people who have so much to say. I'm just grateful, Brother Akili, that we have this opportunity to reflect on the legacy of Brother Malcolm X, Haj Sabaz, to reflect on what he gave us. He gave us audacity. He gave us the opportunity to reflect on how we talk. He said some stuff like the ballot or the bullet. He said, by any means necessary. That's what we need to be saying now. By any means necessary. What will we do to get our freedom? What will we do to break the shackles of predatory capitalism? Those are the questions that Brother Malcolm raised, and we're the inheritors of his dream that are left to answer it. So I thank you all.
And as always, Dr. Malveaux, one of the things I always appreciate about you is your willingness to speak up, speak out, and make sure that you're clear about where you stand. You know, and the rest of us can come along, but you are clear about where you stand. And I appreciate that about you. And I'm glad you're in the position you are in to make sure that we can have a voice on campus like yours. And I do want us to, at some point, address the attack on Black women, the attack on Dr. Melina Abdullah at Cal State LA. I mean, and the overall attack that a lot of Black women leaders are under right now. So I appreciate you raising that. And I, of course, always appreciate your being with us and sharing your thinking, sharing your understanding, and sharing your sincere position. We should be all bold like that. So anyway, I want to thank you. And I understand if you have to go, we appreciate you. I'm going to turn now to a good friend of mine who I've worked with over the years, who I was glad, made sure that we had public celebrations of Malcolm to make sure that we, always remembered him. And he was consistent in this. I'm going to ask Torre Reese with FAMLI Soul and the Malcolm X Legacy Project to come on and talk about why there is a legacy project, what impact did Malcolm have on you, and what are you doing this weekend? So I'm going to, if we can, we want to get Torre Reese. Torre, are you available? And let me make sure that you're not on mute. Torre, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. How are you?
All right. This is Brother Torre Reese. Now, one of the things I focus on is the fact that Torre is the founder and CEO of the Malcolm X Legacy Project, but he's also a performer. He's also a member of the Renaissance, and they're performing probably around the country right now. And he is one of our community's brightest talents. And one of the things that I'm glad that we could get you on, Torre, was because of the work that you have been doing with See a Man, Be a Man, the work that you have been doing with making sure that we celebrate Malcolm and making sure that we don't forget and bringing us together. So with that, I am going to ask my friend, my brother, and supporter. Oh, and also talk about the renaming of the street. Our brother, Torre Reese, the Malcolm X Legacy Project.
Well, good evening. It's good to see everybody. I'm humbled in your presence. Thank you all for being here and for being in love with Malcolm and the legacy of Malcolm X. It's very important. It's critically important to us now. And when I stand in front of my young students at Locke High School in Watts, California, I see new Malcolms coming up. And so I can't help but spend a lot of time with young people to make sure that I'm doing all I can to help them have the kind of life that they desire to have. I don't know where that sound is coming from right now, but I don't see anything to answer, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out and mute it. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but at any rate, it's got to stop at some point, right?
Somebody ought to answer their phone.
Right.
Sound like somebody FaceTiming somebody.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But at any rate, the Malcolm X Festival 17th annual will occur this coming Saturday at 12 noon in Leimert Park Black Arts Village. We're utilizing inside venues, namely the World Stage, which I consider the citadel of Black culture in Leimert Park Village, and the Barbara Morrison Performing Arts Theater. And we're starting off with a youth-focused symposium called I Want to Live, Mentoring to Save a Generation. I must mention that the program that I've been honored and humbled to found 1994 and to run since that time has been running for 9 years at Locke High School in Watts. And we've realized a 100% graduation rate with our Black males. So we believe in our students, we believe in our young people, and we know that with the proper love and attention and consistency that they can achieve anything they want to achieve. We don't believe in the stereotypes about Black people, and particularly about Black youth. So I wanted to mention that because that's central to the Malcolm X Festival, which will be a plethora of different activities this weekend, including live entertainment, including the best food that you can get your hands on, unless you go to my hometown, New Orleans, Louisiana, which we do every October, by the way. Shout out to LaDonna, Msanga, Brenda, and all my other people that's here tonight. And so we're gonna have one day of an explosion of Black culture, unapologetic Black culture in this city that hasn't been seen in a long time because we haven't done the festival in a long time. We brought it back because young people demanded that we do something for Malcolm X. We never stopped honoring Malcolm X, but we hadn't done the festival in 15 years until now. The Boulevard movement, I'd like to talk about a little later, but I have a brother who's an expert in how this city runs and how to get things done. The nuts and bolts person here that makes sure that this thing is getting done. His name is Nsanga Mbele, Andre Parvenu. So I'd love to give him a few seconds to talk about that when the time comes. But yes, that's I hope I answered your question about the festival, my brother.
Please.
People who want to get in touch with us can call direct 323 area code 864-2656. They can email us at FAMLI Soul. Family is spelled F-A-M-L-I, soul, like soul music, S-O-U-L @gmail.com. Or visit our website, famlysoul.org, and get in touch with us right there.
Now, why did you start the Legacy Project, and what personal impact has Malcolm had on you, that you would spend 14, 15 years every year, putting together the festival, bringing people together, having food and all the rest of that. Why and what impact did Malcolm have on you? And what do you think his impact is having today?
My mother gave me a book called The Autobiography of Malcolm X when I was 12 years old. My mother raised me and my 3 brothers by herself. And it was very, very difficult for her to navigate this country, being a Black woman, a young Black woman with 4 boys by herself, no husband. I never knew a father in my entire life. I've never, to this day, don't know who my father is. But I've always known who my mother was, and she was smart enough, intelligent enough to make sure that we spent the weekends in the library. And one of the books that she gave me was the Autobiography of Malcolm X. I didn't completely understand Malcolm, but as I got older, I began to appreciate and identify and resonate with the life of Malcolm X. And I saw many similarities in my life that I saw in his life. And so as I grew older and understood more and came to realize what Black manhood was all about, I could find no better example than Minister Malcolm X, who stood up to this country and told them the truth, no matter what the consequences were. And he said, when he said by any means necessary, he meant it. And I love Dr. King just as much as I love Malcolm. But Malcolm's voice, the way he stood up, the way he spoke, and the tone, the tenor of his voice was something I had never heard before in a Black man. And so I couldn't help but be attracted to that. And I know now that when we look back historically, and we look at the Black Panther movement and the Black arts movement and the Black Power movement, all of that came out of Malcolm X. No Malcolm X, no Black Power movement. No Malcolm X, no Black arts movement. And we understand that before Malcolm, there was Garvey. So we have a tradition of Black protest. We have a tradition of Black revolutionaries in this country, dating back hundreds of years. And Malcolm's in that pantheon, and I want to be there, and I've been there, and I'm proud to call myself a revolutionary. Because if you're not a revolutionary, what you're doing? Because all it means is change, right? And so I could think of no better figure than Malcolm X to honor with a major street going through this Black community that we call the Crenshaw district, who was a racist, who was a separatist, who did not want Black people to live in this community. But we understand that people have, changed it to what we want it to be. We understand that, just like we used that N-word and changed that. But let's put Malcolm X next to that, so that every time we walk down that street or drive down that street, not only do we see Crenshaw, but we see our shining Black prince, Brother Malcolm X, up there.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you are bringing back the festival. I'm glad that the young people actually inspired you to bring it back, because I think we need these kinds of celebrations. I think we need these kinds of coming together. I think we need these kinds of remembrances. And so I appreciate you doing that. And if you want, can you, and I'll put in the chat all that information that you shared so that people can have it and come join us. And it's this Saturday from 12 to 6?
Yes, sir. This Saturday from 12 to 6 in the Mert Park Black Arts Village. And yes, we'll whatever you need me to put in the chat, I can put it there. And, right. And we still need volunteers if people want to come and volunteer. We want everybody to sign the petition and join us in the shaping of history. No street in this city has ever been codenamed. So this is history in the making. It's never been done before. It's been done in New York, in Harlem, New York, 35 years ago. So we're 35 years behind the East Coast. And I think that's a shame, and we need to change that. And we have that opportunity right now.
All right, well, thank you. The next person I want to bring on is also a Down sister, and a sister who I get to be with every Wednesday with the Black Community Clergy and Labor Alliance. Seba Chimbuko Tembo with the African American Culture Center. She's the co-vice chair of the Black Community Clergy and Labor Alliance, the director and publisher of Sankofa Press. And I want to try to make sure I get all these in here, Chimbuko, okay? All right, I want to get them all. So I got BCCLA. You're the co-vice chair of the African American Culture Center, us. And I didn't leave anything out, did I, Chimbuko?
Seba, a moral teacher in the Kawita Mat tradition.
Yes, and I want to make sure I got the Seba in, because that reminds us of the grounding that you bring. And so with that, I want to introduce to you Seba Chimbuko Tembo.
Asante sana Akili Yebo. Asante sana so much for inviting me, and asante also to the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute for extending the invitation. I send greetings, warm greetings of solidarity and continued struggle from the African American Cultural Center, US, and from our executive director, Seba, Dr. Maulana Karenga. I also have to say asante sana thanks, many thanks to Dr. Karenga for his extensive writings and lectures on Minister Malcolm X. And this is how I've gained my understanding and appreciation for Minister Malcolm. I was introduced to the teachings of Minister Malcolm X by Dr. Karenga as a college student at San Diego State University in one of Dr. Karenga's classes on social ethical thought. And me and my roommates, we would stay up literally all night, wouldn't go to sleep, would just keep playing over and over again, especially Message to the Grassroots. You know, we had practically memorized the whole thing by the end of the semester. And we would talk about it, we would discuss it, we would, you know, dialogue, disagree, what did he mean? And just like Dr. Malveaux said, you know, we were drawn to the boldness of his speech, his courage, his commitment, his cadence even, you know, the way he exposed the hypocrisy of America, called it nothing but disguised hypocrisy, no democracy here. How he dismissed, you know, European culture that wanted to pretend it was at the height when really it was so violent around the world. Just his fierce critique, and we called him the fire prophet, right? Because he was so fiery when he talked. So he inspired me, he emboldened me, he reaffirmed me as a Black student, as a Black woman, as a Black person, as a nationalist. And then I joined the organization, US, and I learned more about Kawaida, which is the philosophy of our organization, the philosophy out of which Dr. Karenga created both Kwanzaa and the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles. And I saw that, you know, so much of Kawaida contains the teachings of Minister Malcolm X. Now I'm a Seba, I'm a moral teacher in the Kawaida Mat tradition. And nothing is more important to me or impactful to me now from Minister Malcolm X's legacy than him as a moral teacher. A lot of times we think of moral teacher, we think of Dr. King, but we don't think of Minister Malcolm X, but Minister Malcolm X, right? He was a minister, he was a moral teacher. And he said he had a 3-point program: wake up, clean up, and stand up. Wake up, clean up, and stand up. And Dr. Karenga has a forthcoming book titled The Liberation Ethics of Malcolm X. So when Malcolm says wake up, Dr. Karenga translates that as come into critical consciousness, not just be woke, but critical consciousness. Clean up means have a moral grounding, you know, treat yourself justly, treat other Black people justly, treat people in general justly, and then stand up, engage in transformative struggle, as Minister Malcolm said, by any means necessary. You know, how are you going to struggle? What are you going to do to improve and to push forward our liberation struggle as a people? And so as a moral teacher myself, Malcolm's moral message that we got to wake up, clean up, and stand up impacts me every day. I think about that every day.
Well, and you took on two questions that I wanted to ask. One was how it impacted you personally. And I love the fact that all of us were influenced by Malcolm to the degree that that influence has still stood with us today. And then of course, how does the work that Minister Malcolm was doing relate to what we're doing today? And you covered that. And so Sante, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you joining us and reminding us of the moral value that Minister Malcolm X brought. With that, I'm going to turn to my friend, my brother, who I stand shoulder to shoulder with Black Lives Matter LA, and who is the director of campaigns for Students Deserve, and an example of the generation of organizers that are coming forward today. I'm glad to be able to stand with him. I'm glad to be able to call him my brother. I'm glad to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. And more importantly, I'm glad to be able to look over my shoulder and say, damn, we in good hands. So with that, I want to introduce my brother, my friend, Joseph William from Students Deserve. Joseph? And the first question for you is the same about how Malcolm impacted you personally. What was it about Malcolm that that impacted you, that caused you, that got to you. So we're going to start off with that. And I appreciate you joining us, Joseph. So I'm going to turn it over to Joseph Williams.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Baba Akili and the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute for inviting me. Truly honored and privileged and blessed to be here tonight and to be in movement with you, Baba Akili, and with so many others of you on this call. And also, woefully underqualified to be on a panel with such esteemed and powerful and long-standing pillars in Black LA and in the work that we do, and in Black movement work in general. So really appreciate Dr. Malveaux and Brother Reese, and also Seba, Tembo. Really appreciate all of you all and your contributions to the work. Definitely got to connect with you more offline, Brother Reese. Would love to get connected to some of the folks at Locke High School and hear more about the program that y'all are, implementing down there. And so to answer your question, Baba Akili, how has Minister Malcolm X impacted me personally? I think everybody that shared about how, their first introduction to Minister Malcolm's teachings and his life, the way that his life and the way that he carried himself and embodied his teachings was so impactful to them. And I think, definitely the same for me. And similar to how Brother Reese shared, grew up in a single parent household, experienced, housing insecurity and food insecurity and incarceration as a youth and many other things. And so when I was, and during my childhood, there was always, this distinction. I think we learn about, Malcolm so often in this country in contrast to MLK, right? This society would like to posit, MLK as this wholesome, person who believed in equality and love and all these things, and that Malcolm was a hate monger, right, and was a reverse racist and all these other things. I think that was how Malcolm X was first introduced to me, through the lens of public schooling and the public discourse that very much put him in contrast to the hero that MLK was seen to be, right? And obviously it's revisionist history in both cases, right? Both in the case of Minister Malcolm and in the whitewashed view that many folks have of MLK. But when I was really introduced to Malcolm, I went off to college at 16, 17 years old and was introduced to the autobiography of Malcolm X. And having been somebody, again, who had experienced, some of the same economic and financial and housing and familial instability that Malcolm experienced growing up, who had experienced getting involved in illicit or illegal activities and being criminalized as a Black youth. His transformation and his voice and his power and his ability to articulate, the reason behind the conditions that he was placed in, the reason behind the actions that so many of our folks take, being forced into the ghetto, being forced into oppression and abuse, and so many other things. And his ability to articulate that, his own personal story of overcoming some of the things that he had to experience, and not only becoming focused on like his own personal advancement, as so many folks are, right? The rags to riches story is really popular in our capitalistic society, but overcame, his own background and childhood and obstacles that he faced, and became a warrior for his people, became a voice for his people in such a strong way. And I think, that to me was so inspiring. And again, his uncompromising, stance and his willingness to be unapologetic about his people, about who he was, and about what kind of treatment he would or would not accept, was so powerful to me as somebody who was grappling with, my own experiences as a young Black kid in a white supremacist world, who had experienced, incarceration and criminalization and economic and other kinds of insecurity. So experiencing and being introduced to Malcolm through the through his autobiography when I was 16 or 17 was hugely impactful to me getting involved in movement work as well.
And I'm going to ask, because the autobiography of Malcolm X seems to be a seminal piece, and I'm going to ask people if they would just simply go to the chat button and just raise your hand if you read it and if it had an impact on you. Because I read it early on, but I reread it when I was in the penitentiary, and that's, in many ways it helped me make that transition. And with that, I want to circle back and see if Dr. Malveaux is still on. If she is, because one of the things I wanted to ask her, look at all the hands that are going up. I wanted to ask her about the work that she's doing on campus and with her writing and with her membership on NARC and the rest. I'm going to ask all of you this question about the work that you're doing today. How does it relate to the message and the work that Minister Malcolm was doing? And I'm going to start with me being a part of both Black Lives Matter and the Fannie Lou Hamer Foundation. One of the things that I do all the time, I mean, I have a picture in my house. I got, I wear his button all the time. My children know that even if I don't remember their birthday, I remember Malcolm's. So that's the kind of influence. And I try to always think, is this the kind of thing Malcolm would be doing? I try to, so I'm going to ask you that question. And Joseph, since you're on you're up now, and then we're going to circle back. How does the work you're doing relate to the work that Minister Malcolm was doing, the messages that he had? How is it connected and how does it relate?
Oh man, in so many ways, and I'll try to be quick. I feel like I've been talking for a little bit. But I think one of the main things that I'm blessed to be a part of, both with Students Deserve and that Black Lives Matter also is a key partner in, is the work to divest from criminalization and policing of young people, especially in our schools in LA, and to invest in the kind of care and resources that our young people, especially young Black kids, right, need and deserve. I think one of the reasons that I'm so inspired by Malcolm again is the unapologetic high expectations for the treatment of our people, right? This was in 1965, right? At a time when the majority of the United States was still segregated, still commonplace for white people to openly, verbally or physically abuse and assault our people. And this man demanded such respect and moved with such dignity, and demanded respect not only for himself, but also, for his people and his community. And I think that's one of the things that we're doing with the fight for the Black Student Achievement Program in LAUSD. Not just saying, right, okay, you stabbed me in the back 9 inches, take the knife out 6 inches, right? But really saying, no, that there have been historical harms that the system of policing and that criminalization of Black youth have caused. And it's not only, enough to say, okay, let's stop criminalizing Black youth. Let's remove police from schools after we've already criminalized generations and generations and blocked off so many opportunities for our folks. There's a need and really a demand that we have to have as Black folks to say, no, we deserve, our youth especially deserve, right? The care, the attention, the support, the resources, the access, the opportunities that every human being deserves and that they have been denied from so consistently. And so I think, again, that unapologetic nature, folks told us we couldn't say Black, right? Prop 209, you can't even say Black. You can't have programs or resources specifically funding Black students, right? That's against the law, right? We said, ooh, I'm sorry, almost inspired by Baba Akili and Dr. Malveaux. F that, F that, we said, right? We absolutely must say Black, right? We don't live in a colorblind society. And in order to address the harms, that have been visited upon Black youth, we absolutely have to name them and to invest in Black youth, right? Intentionally. And so we have had to be very unapologetic and very uncompromising with our stance. and say that it's so important, right, that we do center and name the real abuses that Black youth in particular are facing, and that we, take concrete actions, right, to redress those harms, not only to stop those harms, right, or to pull the knife out 6 inches, but how do we really invest resources and dollars and attention and support into our youth to try to address the years of disinvestment and harm and underinvestment that our youth have faced. And again, I think that unapologetic stance forcing the district when they did not want to say, yes, we will invest in Black student achievement, forcing the district to say, yes, we will take funds away from the school police department. We will remove school police from campus when they did not want to, was absolutely inspired, by the unapologetic, uncompromising commitment to the dignity and fighting for the resources and the support and the dignity and the respect that he truly believed that his people deserved, and he embodied in the way that he treated himself and those around him.
Thank you, Joseph. It has certainly been inspiring to see what has been happening with Students Deserve and the Divest Invest and what it means. Seba Chimbuko, the work that the organization is doing now, the work that BCCLA is doing now, how does it connect to and relate to Malcolm's work and Malcolm's message? And the work that you are doing, Chimbuko, Seba Chimbuko, how does it connect? How does it relate? And how does it further uplift Malcolm?
Asante for that, Akili. Well, since 1965, the organization, us, we've seen ourselves as heirs and custodians of the legacy of Minister Malcolm X. That's a long time. That's 56, going on 57 years. And the very first major event we had as an organization was a memorial for Minister Malcolm, February the 21st, 1966, in which, Brother Joseph, we called for students, the high school students, not to go to school that day, to come to our headquarters and to honor Minister Malcolm. And, they wanted to arrest Dr. Karinga for that, for interfering with the education of our children. And it took, political strength and organization to stop that from happening. And so we have been, relating to building on the legacy of Malcolm for a long time. And we've been named a holiday after him. We call it Siku ya Dabihu, which is the day of sacrifice. Again, that's February the 21st. And then we declared today a holiday also called Kuzaliwa, which means the day of birth. And all this around Minister Malcolm. So we feel very tightly connected to him. And how does the work of the organization and the Afro-American Culture Center connect to Minister Malcolm? He did so many things. And one of the things he did was he called for a cultural revolution. Secondly, he said that we need to return to the source. We need to return to Africa. If we can't go physically, then we should go culturally, psychologically, or spiritually. He called for a Black United Front. And we know that he was also a Pan-Africanist, and Asante for that, Akili, opening up with that very strong clip. And so in terms of the African American Cultural Center, our first goal as an organization is for a cultural revolution. We said that since 1965. What we need is a cultural revolution so that we are thinking our values are African values, so we can't just change this society. We can't just change the society. We have to also change ourselves so that we're practicing the best of what it means to be African people, which means we're communitarian. We're thinking of each other as brothers and sisters, as a community. So Minister Malcolm X says we must recapture our heritage and our identity if we are to liberate ourselves from the bonds of white supremacy. We have to recapture our heritage and our identity. He said we must launch a cultural revolution to unbrainwash an entire people. Right? So we have to transform our thinking so we become agents of our own life and liberation. We don't need to count on you. We know you're not going to do it. We count on ourselves. We be self-conscious agents. And again, that's the first goal of our organization. Secondly, Minister Malcolm stressed the need for a Black United Front. He said the key to our success lies in united action. You all remember in almost every speech, he talks about putting aside those little petty differences. If you have different religions, keep your religion in the closet because we don't need to be arguing over that, right? He said we need more light about each other. The light creates understanding. When he says light, he means knowledge. We need more knowledge about each other. Knowledge creates understanding. Understanding creates love. Love creates patience. Patience creates unity. And through unity, a united front can be brought about. And so as Akili was saying, we are building a Black United Front. We built one in the 60s called the Black Congress, and we're building one now called the Black Community, Clergy, and Labor Alliance. That's a broad spectrum of organizations that we've brought together. Dr. Karinga and Jackie Ryan from Zambezi Bazaar are the co-chairs. Brother Akili and myself are vice co-chairs. Dr. Melina Abdullah, Dr. William Smart, Reverend William Smart from SELC, Damian Goodman from Downtown Crenshaw Rising, Reverend Erica Bird from Craft Unity Center, all these and more, all these are members of our steering committee. So again, bringing people together so we can collectively talk about the challenges we face and we can support each other as Minister Malcolm wanted us to do. Thirdly, you know, Minister Malcolm said, we got to return to the source. We got to go back to Africa. And he said, you all know it, you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree, right? So the roots, that's Africa. So you can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. The reason why a lot of people, of our people, hate Africa, again, because they're buying into or they're believing the stereotypes about Africa. Africans don't like us, they're backwards, they're this and they're that. And so what the organization has done for 56 years is to raise Africa, to talk about the values of Africa, the history of Africa. That's where everything started. Humanity, human civilization started in Africa. And so that's a large part of our work, is to rescue and reconstruct and to teach the best values of African people, which are communitarian values, right? That have been codified by Dr. Karinga as the Nguzo Saba. And then in terms of Pan-Africanism. So for 56 years, we've built relationships and provided material support to various African peoples on the continent and in the diaspora. You know, we send donations, we send supplies, we host educational forums so that our people, wherever they are, can come and talk to us about what's going on. How can we support them? You know, Justice for the Haitians, for example. We also hold an annual African Liberation Day commemoration to provide critical knowledge on what's happening in the continent to Black people. You know, we have a lot of struggles on the continent. We have the United States intervening with massive bases on the continent. This is a huge struggle for us. You remember when we fought against apartheid, right? We're the ones who changed that. We argue that we're key people in a key country. African Americans have a key role to play on what happens on the continent, what happens to our people there. And this year, our African Liberation Day event will be held on Monday, May 30th. And so, you know, I could go on, Akili, but there are many, many ways in which Malcolm X impacts the work of the organization. Us, again, you know, we feel so tightly connected to him because we were founded on September the 7th, just 7 months after he martyred himself for us. And I also just want to say that I think it's really important when we talk about him and all of our great men and women that we make sure to put them in an organizational context, because we don't want to have that narrative of America that, you know, the lone individual is able to pull themselves up out of the dirt or whatever and make this miracle. No, Malcolm was in an organization called the Nation of Islam. And that's how he was able to achieve a lot of what he did. Even though he fell out with the messenger and he fell out from the Nation of Islam, that was his grounding. That is what made him the strong person that we're talking about and that we're honoring today. The same could be said of Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. When she was a child, she said, she was a young child, she told her mother, when I grow up, I want to do something great. But it wasn't until SNCC came to Mississippi that she was able to do something great, because she was in an organizational context. And so, you know, most of us are organizers here, we're institution builders here, and we have to stress that people that want to do something, you have something in your mind and in your heart that you want to be involved, you want to help change, but by yourself, you can't do it. You know, you can't do what you really could do. So encourage everyone to join an organization. That's what made Minister Malcolm X strong, Fannie Lou Hamer strong. Dr. King said he wanted to be a preacher at the church. It was the Black people who organized the bus boycott that grabbed him and said, come on, be a part of this. And, you know, he admits he resisted at first. He said, I don't want to do that. I just want to be a church preacher. They said, no, 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 no. We want you to be a part of this. And so the importance of being in an organization, that's how we come to fruition. That's how we reach our height, is being in an organization. Sante Sana, Brother Akili.
Wow. All of us, I should take everybody off mute so that we can all clap and so you can hear us, because that was powerful, Seba, Tembo. And, and it really reminded us and helped ground us. Torre, I'm coming to you. What is the work that you are doing with Family Soul, with the Legacy Project, that relates to and is connected to the work that Malcolm talked about and was doing? And how do you see the relationship between then and now? So Torre, a little bit about how the work you're doing now is connected to the work that Malcolm was doing, and how you see contributing and carrying on, that work. Torre?
First, let me say hello to my sister, Chimbuko. How are you, sister?
And Brother Torre, good to see you, sir.
Auntie. And my brother Joseph Williams, you are eminently qualified to be on any panel in this world with anybody in the world.
That's right, absolutely.
Yes. We love the fact that, that you're conscious and that you're here and contributing, my brother. So I certainly invite you to come work with me with the young brothers and See a Man, Be a Man, which is answering the question that my brother asked me. My salient work in honor of Malcolm X and in honor of all our people is the work I've been doing for the past 30-something years with vulnerable young people in our communities. As I stated earlier, for the past 9 years, our programs that are stellar life mastery programs, people call them mentoring programs, but I call it life mastery, because that's what we're teaching them how to do, to master their lives. We have a 9-point curriculum called The Root that I wrote back in 1994. Spirituality, culture, career, education, economics, politics, health, family, and at the end of the 9 months, personal responsibility. They learn how to articulate orally, with the written word, and with their actions. And so at the end of the 9 months, they master this thing called life, right? In these 9 different critical life areas. So before that, we were at Audubon Middle School for 13 years, and then at Crenshaw and Darcy and other schools. So we've been doing that work for 29 years of working with young people in the school systems. So my greatest contribution, I have to say, is as a creative classroom teacher, founder of my nonprofit, which focuses primarily on vulnerable young people. And then, of course, in addition to that, the festivals, the educational symposia, the annual tour to New Orleans to discover the Black contributions to the Blackest city in this nation, which I happen to be a native of, the film festival called I Have Known Rivers, the classic photo series that started in 1996, honoring Horace Tapscott. A lot of people don't talk about Horace anymore. Billy Higgins, Richard Fulton, who opened Fifth Street Dicks. We honor our own kind every year. And we're putting together a documentary to chronicle our history so that no one comes along and writes our story, writing our own story. And so the first answer to the question is, of course, to focus on young people. And then as a musical artist, I am in the tradition of Paul Robeson. I am in the tradition of Curtis Mayfield and Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye, Donny Hathaway, and those artists like Nina Simone, who understood that art was an opportunity to open up the world and create opportunities for our people on another level. And so as an artist, I'm conscious of the social justice movement, the movement for racial justice, etc. So I wrote a song after that program that I just talked about, See a Man, Be a Man, that's out right now and available on all platforms. The song is called See a Man, Be a Man. If you want to hear it, go on YouTube. I wish I could have played it here for y'all tonight. And the young people are pushing it for me right now, And so my art is connected to everything I do as an educator, as a community organizer. But my greatest role on this planet, like Brother Malcolm, is as a father and grandfather. I have 4 girls and 5 grandchildren, and I'm most proud of that role in my life.
And I want to thank you all for sharing your thoughts, your understanding and position on Malcolm. It was truly both informative and inspirational. and I'm thinking we should do this every month, every week, every 15 minutes if we can, to remind us of our strength and our positiveness. I want to take a few minutes now because I've done this ever since our meeting last Sunday. We need space to talk about what happened in Buffalo. We need the permission to express our anger, express our grief, express our sadness. And so I'm going to take a few minutes. And first, I want to once again thank all of our participants, Dr. Malveaux, Torre, Chimbuko, Seba and Chimbuko, and Joseph. I want to thank you all. You brought such richness to this program. When you invite people, you don't think about what's going to happen when you invite them, but this was tremendously rich. I want to take a few minutes though, and kind of open up and let people share some questions and some comments, because you know how we are. We get to the question and answer, but we really make comments, and that's fine. But I want to open up for a few minutes, and then before we call on Vernine to give us our call to action, and Erica to close us out. But I want to spend a few minutes opening up and having people express themselves about their feelings about what happened in Buffalo, and to pose any questions or comments that you have to the panelists. So first, I'm going to open up. I'm going to remove the mute button and see if people want to share, that's fine. If you don't, we understand. But first, your feelings about what happened in Buffalo, and what do you think about it? What do you feel about it? If you want to comment, just put your hands up and we'll call on you. You can certainly put it in the chat. But so throw your hands up if you want to share. If not, we'll move, we can certainly move on, but we want to give that space. We want to give that opportunity to people. We want to make sure that that we hear from you. I see Benny Ballet.
No, Blades.
Okay, brother, thank you.
Yes, I want to comment about what happened in Buffalo. I think Buffalo is systematic of the fact that when whites commit domestic terrorism or anything like that, they're treated differently. A black person get arrested unarmed and get killed. A white person shoot 30, 40 people and they take him alive. So what it implies is white lives are valued more than lives of others. And I think it kind of signifies it. And the fact that white racism and white extremism came to the point where it's almost accepted now. So those are some of my comments on what happened in Buffalo.
And thank you, brother. And I appreciate that. And one of the reasons why I felt it's important to open up and have and people to share is because we cannot just accept this and move on. We just can't that's another mass shooting and that's shame. And then it's like, it never, it never happened. And so that's why I wanted to at least give space now to this and make sure that at least we had a chance to share among ourselves how we feel and the impact of what happened, and I'm going to ask you all in your next meeting, in your next Zoom, raise it. Don't let this just happen. And we not talk about it. We not share. We not express ourselves about this. This is horrendous. This is, among the worst, because we've had slavery, in the enslavement, we've had lynchings, Red Summers, the massacre of in Tulsa, Mother Emanuel Church. I don't want us to focus on Black death. I want us to focus on our resilience to move on. But I also want to make sure that we have time to release this, to speak about it, to share our feelings with each other. And certainly I want to certainly start with the panelists and others of you that want to share where you are, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And Seba, Chimbuko, I want to go back to you. What are you thinking about what happened in Buffalo?
Asante for that, Akili, and Asante for giving us time to talk about this. First of all, my heart goes out to the people who lost their loved ones, as well as to the entire Buffalo community, because I understand it was a tight-knit community there. I mean, I think about what would it feel like that your mother, your grandmother, your auntie went to the store and didn't come back. That kind of unimaginable pain. And so my heart goes out to them, and I just really feel for that, what that would be like. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think about is, what it says about America, that we as a people are so vulnerable. You can go to the store, you could be in church praying, you can be in your car just chilling, you could be asleep in your bed, you could be a 12-year-old boy playing in the park. Just how vulnerable we are really as a people, that this is where we live. And, going back again to Minister Malcolm, he has a quote that Dr. King often uses, which says that wherever a Black person is in America is a battle line. In other words, it's a battlefield. It's a war zone that we're living in, that at any time, any of us, all of us, are vulnerable to something happening to us. And that is a hard fact to face, but it is a fact. And I think Malcolm would say we should face that and we should prepare for it, because that's the reality that we live in right now. And in terms of preparing for it, continue to struggle, continue to work, continue to organize so that we can transform this country into something that it ought to be, something where we can live and feel like our lives are valuable and feel like we are safe. Right now, we don't have security of person. None of us know what might happen when we go outside, or we don't even have to go outside, just be sleeping in your bed and something might happen. And that's a sad fact, but that's the America that we live in. And I'm angry about it and I'm mad about it. And sometimes, I get sad about it when I think about what that would mean for my mother to go to the store and look at this chump, right? Same thing that happened in Mother Emanuel Church. You're so bad. You got your gear on, dressed up in fatigues and all that. And where do you go? You go to a church. We go to a church. You go to a store that you've been at and you see that, it's a lot of elderly Black people. You're so tough. What a chump. What a chump. And so, yes, I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm sad. And it's doubles my commitment to continue to struggle so that our people don't have to live like this.
Thank you. Joseph, I'm going to come to you, and then Willie Boyd, I'm coming around to you. Joseph?
Thanks, Baba Akili. Just echoing everything that Seba Tembo said, that Benny said. I think there's so many different emotions, and for me, we had a Students Deserve core team meeting on Monday night with a bunch of Black youth leaders from around LA. And it's an organizing meeting, and we got actions coming up and active campaigns in LAUSD trying to push for more resources for Black students and more cuts to school police and criminalization and things like that. But on Monday night, almost the whole night, we just talked about that, just made space for youth to share and process. And, like folks have said, there's just such a huge spectrum of emotions that folks are feeling and dealing with and experiencing, from rage to grief to pain to, so many things, depression and whatever else. And I think the one that is the most hurtful for me is the numbness that some of our youth articulated feeling. How this is such a regular occurrence, and thinking about how visible Black death is in the United States now. It's always been a thing. It's always been here, right? It's not new, but the visibility, and the regularity with which our youth are presented with images and reminders of Black death is overwhelming. You know, it's really overwhelming. I can't imagine being a kid at this, you know, right now. And I'm, you know, not too far removed, but the onset of social media and you know, the internet and its accessibility through phones and things like that just have given our kids just unlimited access to see Black death, and it's constantly being shared and talked about. And I think the impact that that has or is having on, you know, the mental health and the social emotional well-being of the next generation for me is just something that I've been really consumed with, because I work so closely with youth, and because youth, you know, like us, are experiencing so many things, but also unlike us, social media, and maybe like some of us as adults, but I don't think any of us grew up in the same way as glued to and like you know, reliant on social media for information, for connection and communication and connection with your friends and all these kinds of things. And this is the same space that's being bombarded constantly with images of Black death and pain and abuse and dehumanization. And so it's been really painful for sure on that level to think about the kids who are experiencing this, including kids, you know, many of whom have experienced you know, the pain of white supremacy and racist abuse in their own families. I know 2 kids who have been involved in Students Deserve stuff that have had, you know, directly their loved ones have been murdered by police. And so, you know, just the constant nature of the dehumanization and the, you know, depictions of Black death and pain and suffering can for sure be overwhelming. And it is a blessing to be a part of an organization, as Seba Tembo said, to be a part of building intention, where we can build Black joy and love and resilience. And I think that's so necessary. And again, I just feel for the kids, all people, right? But especially folks in the next generation who are disconnected from organizations, disconnected from community, disconnected from family or positive, you know, environments in school or whatever else, because yeah, just the impact that this is having on youth is monumental.
And with that, Monique Bacon put in the chat, it's troubling and sad. It's not fair to our babies. So Monique, I'm gonna call on you in a minute and ask you to share that with us. I'm gonna go to Willie Boyd, whose hand is up. And once again, we're talking about our feelings, our thoughts, our expressions about what happened in Buffalo. Willie, my fellow NAACP member.
Thank you so much, Brother Baba Ali. It's a privilege to be in this forum this evening. And so much has been said that really got my emotions stirred up, you know. As you know, I'm from South Carolina, but I've been living in Los Angeles here for the last 40 years, since 1982. And, you know, when you all speak about Mother Emanuel down there, I've been on that street, and I've been associated with some of the parishioners of Mother Emanuel over the years. But I'm here to talk about my feelings about Malcolm X. And, you know, when I was growing up in South Carolina, one of the vice presidents of the NAACP from Newark, New Jersey, had moved back to South Carolina. And he had these albums that he used to play. And one was The Message to the Grassroots from Malcolm X. In that, he talked about the house Negro and the field Negro. Baba Ali, I used to pick cotton down there with my grandmother back in 1962, 63. So I'm a field Negro. I'm the one that if the master's house caught on fire, that Malcolm so eloquently stated. I want to go in there and burn it down. Burn it down. Because of all of the harsh treatment that we've been enduring in those fields down there, picking that cotton in that hot boiling sun. I was just a young toddler, Ali, Brother Ali, maybe about 9 years old. My grandma didn't want us to leave us at home by ourselves. So she took us out there, just so she could keep an eye on us, I love Malcolm X. In university, when I was attending the HBCU back in Charlotte, North Carolina, I got labeled a radical. They labeled me a radical. Most of the faculty there, although it's a HBCU, mind you, the faculty was predominantly Caucasian. And I felt that they were trying to groom me to be a house Negro. That's what I felt. So I rebelled. Somebody gave me a paper. I did a research paper about lynching in one of my historiography classes, and I got a D, and I went to the vice president of academic affairs. Now, what is this? While I was overseas in the Navy, being a good Negro, one of my buddies in South Carolina was lynched. I'm talking about Brother Ali, probably 1974. And in my lifetime, So I said, I want to go in there and lynch him. So I got labeled a radical, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be labeled a radical. I'm one of them Denmark VC Negroes from South Carolina, black man. Let me rephrase that. I'm not a Negro. I'm a black man, like Malcolm said. I'm one of them Denmark VC kind of guys. I want to burn everything down. Let's lynch them. Dr. Alvin Toussaint from Harvard University wrote a book, talked about the health crisis that's persists in this country among African Americans. He talked about it, he coined the phrase post-traumatic slavery syndrome, Brother Ali. And
if you just add an I to that, we'd have my name. It's Akili.
yeah, I'm sorry, Brother Akili. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
No.
My head is trying to focus on delivering a message and putting passion and. But Brother Akili.
Yes.
We were further traumatized. Black folks have been traumatized during colonialism in Africa. That's where the trauma really began. Leopold down in the Congo, massacring 10 million people. The trauma of the Middle Passage. You mentioned all the massacres that occurred, say from 1867 up until last law. That was another massacre. We have been, Dr. Alvin Toussaint coined this phrase, post-traumatic slavery syndrome. We are still experiencing it. It ain't went nowhere, So we have to console one another and continue to lift each other up and be our brother's keeper, brotherhood, sisterhood, and reach down in the core of our own human being and declare ourselves the royalty that we are. We are royal people. That's enough for me, brother. I'm grateful to be in this forum. I'm a student, Dr. Ali, Brother Akili. Dr. Akili, let me get that right. I'm a student, but I'm listening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And if others of you want to share, please do just throw up your hands. And once again, we wanted to make space for this because we have to talk about it. We cannot carry this around. And I'm going to ask all of you, when you are in a group, when you are with people, raise this issue. Let's talk about it. Let's see how people feel. Monique, I'm going to ask you, while I don't see your hand up, if you would share. Okay. Oh, look, my good friend Jeffrey Richardson is on the phone, is on the call and has his hand up. And then Monique, if you're comfortable, please share. But Jeffrey and I, wow, talk about going back. Jeffrey, I train organizers, and I'm willing to say that now. I used to wouldn't say that, but here's one of the persons that I'm so glad I had a chance to train. I'm so glad I had a chance to spend time with. I'm so glad I had a chance to learn from. Jeffrey is calling us. I was going to say Pittsburgh, Jeffrey, but I know it's Delaware now, from Wilmington, Delaware. So Jeffrey, please share your feelings, your thoughts, your position on what has happened in Buffalo. And it's so good to have you on, and it's so good to see you.
Brother Baba Akili, my mentor and my definitely trainer. I'm honored and humbled. I see Sister Chimbuko. I've been to this center. Blessings to all of you. So thank you for this.
Good to see you, Brother Jeffrey. Yes, sir. It's been a long time.
Indeed, I'm honored and humbled. And so this is, it's a critical time for our people. And I think the key, the organizing that I learned from Akili, he's such fundamental. I came to Pittsburgh, spent so much time with me, so I'm just, again, really excited about this. But this moment that we're in, I think is a critical period for our people in this country. I think, we have to talk very clearly about fascism in our country, and that our struggle, as it has always been, is to, at least in part, I'm not trying to struggle to be a part of America as it is. That does not inspire me, and I don't think we can. How can you get life from something that's dead or dying? So what is the world that we want to create and that we are working to build? I think that gives us the hope, and that's something that we have to defend. We have to resist both slipping into depression. It is a real human emotion. We have to buoy each other up in these times of struggle, but also continue to fight and resist. That is something we absolutely have to do. And I know there's some other people in other communities even who would join with us, in some instances, small numbers, but they're there. But we first have to do that for ourselves and fight, resist, and push back, and help our youth, as I heard Brother Joseph Williams speak about that, to encourage our youth about the hope. I asked a student, I teach at the University of Delaware in African Studies, and I asked a student, what is the future that you'd like to see? I asked the class that, and one of the students said, I don't and can't articulate the future I want to see. All I can talk about is what I see happening now. And I said, well, we have absolutely got to talk about that. Because if we can't talk about the world that we imagine, if we can't conceptualize it, if we don't know what freedom is like, we can't even express what freedom is like, we'll never get that. So that is something that we have to give back to our folks, get our youth to see that, and we have to articulate that strongly and resist and defend that freedom by any means necessary in the spirit of Brother Malcolm. So thank you very much, Brother Akili. Thank you.
And it's so good to see you. I'm going to, and I know it's late for you. It's almost 10:30 for you. But once again, it's open. If you want to share your feelings, if you want to share your thoughts, if you want to share your concern, it's open. We want to hear from you. And once again, I'm going to ask you to make space with your family, with your friends. Let's talk about this. Let's don't carry this around. The other thing I want to do is uplift. This is not our responsibility. This is white folks got to deal with this. That we certainly have to resist. We have to fight back. We have to take the statement that Black Lives Matter and make it real. But white people have to deal with this. They have created the conditions. They perpetuate the conditions, and they protect these kind of people. So no, this is the responsibility of white people. We cannot. And Maulana says this all the time. First of all, we can't learn from our oppressors. But secondly, we cannot let them off the hook. We cannot let society off the hook. And we have to make sure that it doesn't happen again, but we also have to make sure that we continue to love each other, to support each other. and to struggle with each other. That doesn't mean that, you know, we all love and light and we all get along and all. We have conditions and personalities like other people, but like everybody. But what can we come together on? And for me, it's the legacy of Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer and what she went through and her struggles, and Black Lives Matters, and making that simple statement real. I'm going to ask Vernine if she would come on now and give us remind us of our call to action. And with that, I'm going to move, after she finishes, I'm going to move to Erica Ryan to ask her to come on and close us out. So Vernine,
All right.
our call to action.
All right, our call to action, I just dropped it in the chat. Our first call to action is having an opportunity to be a part of your voice, listening to what you want to see within this city as far as the budget. The budget is always a moral document. And when we look at what's going on in the city of Los Angeles, I don't know if you all realize that greater than 50% of our budget is spent towards police. And we have all of these ills going on within our city, from people on the street, the houselessness, mental illness. We have communities that money has been extracted from. So this is an opportunity for you to be able to voice your voice. What is it that you'd like to see and be a part of Los Angeles? How our tax dollars, how they are spent. So in the chat, I have put in the link to the peoplesbudgetla.com/survey for you to participate. And after you participate, please send it to 5 other people so that their voices in this city can be heard, and heard from the people. What do we want to see within our city? And please save the chat and take that time. The next thing is, we today have been blessed, we've been enlightened, and definitely we have been empowered. And what we'd like for you to do is, I'm going to put a link in the chat for you to also go to the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute.org website for you to donate, for you to sign up so that you can be informed on other projects and activities that we will have in the future. So those are the 2 call to actions. And I have one other one that I'd like to also include is there was an incident that was mentioned at the beginning of the presentation on Dr. Molina, that Cal State LA, of a public forum that was done, and she was literally carried out on all 4s by police. And we are asking for the dean, the president of Cal State, to be fired. And so I am going to put in the chat also for you to voice your opinion on that he must go, Covino must go. So please take those 3 steps: the people's budget, sign up for the survey, please. The other, please go to the Fannie Lou Hamer and stay engaged, especially if you like to continue to hear the richness of our 4 dynamic panelists today that have shared the time with Malcolm, the celebration of his birthday today, and just the overall community that we have had here today. And last, if we talk about protecting Black women, please also let that be known as far as Fire Covina. Thank you.
And thank you. And we do need to make sure that we speak out against what happened to Dr. Melina Abdullah. That is horrendous. And with that, I'm going to ask Erica Ryan, another steering committee member of the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute, if she would come in and close us out.
Good evening, everyone. I want to come on and thank our illustrious panel for their words, their wisdom, them sharing their knowledge, coming out and speaking about this important issue and about how Malcolm X has affected us all. And I'm so glad that Baba Akili brought up the families of Buffalo and the Buffalo shooting, and allowing that space and that giving us that opportunity to share just what we're all carrying, what we're all just feeling right now, and just allowing that space and allowing ourselves that opportunity to breathe and to share and to come together and to commune, because this is so important. And especially today, to celebrate Malcolm X and to realize that the work that we're doing and how impactful that it is, and to working together as a collective. And I just want to, because I too share the same equivalent of feeling like sometimes you're in spaces that you don't belong. We all belong here. If nothing else that we have learned from Malcolm X and Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer is that our presence is important. Our community is important. Getting together and having these types of forums are important. And this is why, to remind us that regardless of what's going on in the world, that when we stand up and we stand together, that we are unstoppable. And I am so proud to know that these illustrious speakers that we had and the participants, we so thank you for coming and participating with us today. And we are the next Malcolm X's of the world. We will be writing the books. We will be the community that our future leaders will be talking about someday. So with that, I leave you all. I thank you again for joining us this evening. I know we went a little long, but I appreciate you being here. And remember to visit our website at FannieLouHamerInstitute.org so that we can continue to share and commune together in these types of forums. Thank you all.
And once again, thank you all. We appreciate your showing up here. Great job, all of you that helped work to make this happen. And I want to thank the steering committee for that. And I want to thank you all of you for joining us. And once again, share with other people. Don't let this just be silently go to the next thing. All right. And you all have a great evening. And oh, wait a minute, Chimbuko, what's happening this Sunday?
Asante Sana Akili. This Sunday, Dr. Malana Karenga will be lecturing on Minister Malcolm X. That's Sunday at 3 o'clock, and I will put the link in the chat.
All right. And Torre, don't forget to join us in Africatown or Lamert Park, as many people may still call it, for the Malcolm X Legacy Project that's going on to celebrate, remember Malcolm X. All right. Thank you all very much. We really appreciate you hanging in there with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Baba Akil. Thank you, everybody. Peace and love.
All right.
All right.